Welcome in to Salt City Hoops once again. It's Thanksgiving. We're going to talk about some fun things we're thankful for today. My name is Mark Pereira, once again here giving you the lowdown on the latest for the Utah Jazz and some fun things and musings and just general happiness around discussing the Utah Jazz, hopefully giving you a little bit brighter spots to talk about, just a little outlet for you to think about the Jazz, a little outlet for me to think about the Jazz and get the thoughts out there. The little quick show today, I always say it's going to be a quick show, then it turns into a typical hour-long podcast. But, you know, we're gonna shtick it up here a little bit. It's Thanksgiving. We're recording this on Wednesday night, the night before Thanksgiving, and I figured, like, hey, what better opportunity than just do a good old "What are you thankful for" episode here, especially with the Utah Jazz, when the losses tend to occur more frequently than the wins. It's good to take stock of what we actually do appreciate about this basketball team and being a fan of this team. And hopefully, as you're driving to grandma's house, or if you're waking up in the morning, whipping up the dishes, and you're hosting, and hopefully I'm giving you something to just jazz it up a little bit. No, I guess pun intended, a little bit. To make your day a little bit brighter as a Jazz fan and talk about what we're thankful for. I am hosting. I typically do host our own Thanksgiving, but we have the roster of guests is a lot lower this year. So making less food, less variety of dishes. But I love cooking. It's one of my favorite hobbies. I'm not quite an advanced, like, super chef, but I do know my way around a kitchen pretty well. I like experimenting with some things. So Thanksgiving usually gives me an opportunity to try some things or refine some recipes in the past. So I love hosting myself, and so just got done cooking and sous chefing a lot of stuff from the night before. And we've had a few beverages while we did that. So we got a little sauce in the energy today. And I got myself a pecan pie brown ale to accompany me on this episode here today. So what I want to get into is just a quick run through things that I'm thankful for about the Jazz, this iteration of the Jazz, not being a Jazz fan in general. There are many great historical things that we can look back on that we love about being a Jazz fan, but I really want to make sure we focus on this year and remind us all of some things that are actually pretty great, that are great things that are happening this year, both like bigger picture type of things, but also discrete little things like player stats and that sort of thing. So I'm going to have some fun here, and we'll get into some stupid stuff later about Thanksgiving itself, because I think it's a pretty great holiday. So getting into it, before we get into it, I really want to hear from you guys. If you're on there on Twitter, Blue Sky, YouTube, the Spotify comment section, whatever, I want to hear what you're thankful for. I want to talk to me. I want you to disagree with me, agree with me, whatever you want. I will say it every week because I think it's fun. Part of the whole idea here is it's an outlet for me, especially someone who doesn't live in Salt Lake City or Utah in general, to get to talk to you as Jazz fans and hear your thoughts, because I don't get to do that except with my wife and children very often around Nuggets country here in Denver, Colorado. So very much encourage you guys to do the whole like and subscribe nonsense, but also even if we're just commenting in the comment section, I really love to hear that as well. So what am I thankful for with the Utah Jazz? Number one thing that I keep coming back to every single year is when you look around the NBA and see decisions of how could that team be doing that decision, and that team is so horribly mismanaged, and you got the Sacramento Kings of the world, you got the Dallas Mavericks of the world now, you got the New Orleans Pelicans of the world. What I am most thankful for, especially as a small market operation in Salt Lake City, is that we have a management and ownership group that really, really has their stuff together. I don't think we have the richest owner in the world, and I think there's certainly going to be some penny pinching around fringe teams paying the luxury tax and that sort of thing. But I don't think Ryan Smith is anti-paying the luxury tax, especially if a team is a quality basketball team. And then I do think there is a management structure that is really, really, really trying some stuff. They do not sit on their hands. And I'll totally entertain conversations and quibbles of decisions that we disagree with, how Justin Zanuck or Austin Ainge or Danny Ainge have made in their careers in Utah and elsewhere, right? Like looking at Danny Ainge's Boston tenure and kind of criticizing the moves. And, the joke goes the non-moves that Danny Ainge did not make year after year. I'm not saying that any of Ryan Smith or the Ainges or Justin Zanuck are above reproach. What I am thankful for is that they're trying. Is that they give a crap. And they are really, really trying to find value around the edges and the margins, which is what you need to do as a small market team. The Jazz have a truckload of cap space going into this coming summer. And they're two of the things that you can point to with all this cap space. One, they know they're not going to sign a big old free agent coming in and filling up that cap space. First of all, there's not a lot of great free agents out there in this particular summer class. That's a story for another episode. But also, that's not the point. What I am happy about, though, is that we're going to go into the summer with a well-managed cap situation because of what they did. And I'm pretty confident, because of how they operate, that they are going to try to make value signings to improve the roster immediately. Like we've done with I think after the season, you're going to look for, okay, now is the time to start accelerating this, and having cap space this year is a perfect time to do so. Having cap space in a season where a bunch of big S-tier superstar future Hall of Famers are going to be free agents isn't useful to Utah. None of those guys are signing in Utah. In fact, a season where there's much fewer teams that have cap space and a lot of good role players available. That is how it's like, okay, now we can start building in. That is more advantageous for a team like Utah, where, yes, we are trying to sign more of the good starter or good six-man or good rotation pieces to take minutes away from, to use an example, like Bryce Sensabaugh is not really playing well this year. Like, take minutes away from him. Take minutes away from Kyle Filipowski, where he becomes a 12-minute-a-game guy instead of a 30-minute-a-game guy. Like, we want Filipowski and Sensabaugh to be better players, but if we actually want to accelerate the growth curve of the best players on the team, then you need to start adding some talent. I think this summer is a great opportunity to do so. I think that this management team and the ownership is like B+, A-. And if you look around the NBA, that is a stunningly high grade to meet. And so I'm thankful for that. I really, really am appreciative that we're not sitting here. Just can you imagine what it'd be like to be a Pelicans fan right now, or God forbid, a Mavericks fan or a Kings fan, where your happiness is derived from your fellow fan and joking about the team and commiserating, but there isn't a whole lot of, well, what are we actually looking forward to kind of thing. I'm sure there's going to be individual pieces that Kings fans and Mavericks fans can look forward to, but with how horribly the teams have been mismanaged, there's always going to be an underlying element of despair. And the Jazz don't have that. I think you can have a little bit of despair of like the Jazz haven't been winning for a few years and everything, but this is a well-thought team that is trying every single time. And compared to, I think, the Dennis Lindsey era, I think this is a management group that is just constantly on the phone, right? I think the Luka Doncic trade is indicative of this. Jazz picked up a second-round pick. I think 2 second-round picks, if I'm not mistaken, 1 or 2 second-round picks, just to help facilitate that deal. They actually didn't know what the actual deal was until it got phoned into the league office, to be clear. But it says something that the relationship that the Jazz management have with the rest of the league is, hey, we have this super amazing top-secret deal. Who is the one person we can call to offload Jalen Hood-Schifino to make this work from a salary perspective? And Danny Ainge was their first call. And I think Austin Ainge is, kind of follows from that. And I think Justin Zanuck and his team, his very lean team, is very good at salary cap operations. That they don't need not a staff of 900 to help make it work. I think he's got that pretty much on lock on it in an ever complicated area. So I think that's something worth kind of look back as like we can get frustrated with wins and losses all we want to, but this is a team that is the management group that is trying, and they're always on the phone. And maybe the deal doesn't get done, Danny Ainge style, but they're always trying, and I think that's pretty cool. I think we should be thankful for that. So we'll see what happens coming to the trade deadline too, because they're going to be on the phone, and we'll get into Lauri Markkanen in a little bit, but I'm thankful for that they didn't look at Lauri Markkanen and say, well, we should just trade him for negative value, right? We're going to keep this guy unless you blow our doors off. Because it is more valuable to the future of our team that we don't trade him unless we're getting, the 5 first-round picks, 4 pick swaps, whatever you can come up with. So I'm thankful for that. Speaking of the management group, I think this goes hand in hand, though, with Will Hardy. I am incredibly thankful that we got a first-time NBA head coach that's got it. He's got it. I think as a first-time head coach, there's going to be some specific things I quibble with. I think this personnel is bad defensively, but I don't think the transition defense should be 30th in the NBA for 3 years in a row. Offensive rebounding is quite great, and that's obviously going to be a kind of a trade-off that you're going to have there naturally. But in general, he is a top 15 coach. And in an era of the NBA, unlike the 2000s in the 90s, and certainly before then, but I'm a young buck. I sit here as I just turned 35. I'm not that young, but so I don't know the 80s too well. But certainly in the 90s and the 2000s, you could always rely on 10 to 15 NBA coaches just not have, they should not have that job. And maybe they were successful in another stint or what have you, but there was always a good, healthy amount of coaches that should not have that job. And in the past 5 to 10 years, maybe 5 to 8 years more accurately, you can only really point to 3 to 5 NBA coaches every year where you say, that guy really doesn't belong there. A Chauncey Billups type. I was denigrating Chauncey Billups well before he got arrested. I've always thought he was bad. Willie Green had a fairly respectable start to his coaching tenure and then lost everything as far as a locker room and strategic standpoint. So there's very few coaches that you look around the NBA and say, that guy is terrible. So to be merely passable, you could be the 26th best coach in the NBA, which is not a value add to your organization. You just have to be not bad. And I think Will Hardy's decidedly top 15, top 12. You can't put him above that because he hasn't been tested. His mettle hasn't been poked at in a playoff setting, right? Same criticism you can have to Lauri Markkanen. And so those types of situations, you can't credibly put him above that. But he's starting from a floor of a couple things that I think are critical to coaching, and that is his player relationship aspect of things is just tremendous. He can confidently yank guys in and out of the lineup, and I don't feel like he's doing it for vindictive Quinn Snyder reasons. Like Quinn Snyder, the Dante Exum situation, just always felt like it wasn't right. It feels like he has all the players in his pocket as far as, I'm going to coach you hard, and I'm always going to make you feel a certain way that will not make you tune me out. After 4 seasons of losing basketball, I know not every player has been here for 4 years. Lowry certainly has. Walker has. That is really, really hard to do. And to go through, we saw it with Colin Sexton. I think Will Hardy and Colin Sexton did not get along that first year. And their relationship grew. I think his relationship with Keontae George is growing and is allowing Keontae to be the kind of the person that and the player that he is. A lot of credit obviously goes to the players first on this sort of thing. But without good coaching, this isn't accelerated as much as it has. A bad relationship stays a bad relationship. A bad coaching situation or a bad development curve stays a bad development curve without good coaching. I also think the other aspect of Will Hardy that I appreciate is that it's pretty clear from game to game. The reason he's so hard on these players is because he has very specific asks of them on every opponent. So it's very hard in an 82 game season to have every player dialed in for all 82 games on like a defensive or offensive game plan. Sometimes you just got to run your stuff and hope it works, because the reliability of the expectation of what do I do in this situation, opponent agnostic, is more important than focusing on what do I need to do for this opponent. But Will Hardy, it's pretty clear on game to game, he is asking his players to do specific things for specific opponents. That can be really hard for players to do when you're not playing the same opponent. After a given night, Will Hardy actually made a comment about this. I think it was in the Minnesota back-to-back, or maybe it was I think it was we had a home and home with Minnesota, and he mentioned that. Like, we got totally blown out in Minnesota on their neon green court, and then came back. We lost to Minnesota in Salt Lake City, but had a much more respectable showing. And it's such a small sample size. There's 1,000 reasons for that. But Will Hardy did mention post-game, there is a little bit more that you can do to prepare for that same opponent. And it gives me optimism that when this team makes the playoffs, he's going to have that specific opponent's game plan dialed in. But also because he kind of switches it up from opponent to opponent, he does have some adaptability to him. Like, if something isn't working, he will try something else. I think Quinn Snyder really rocketed up the floor of those Mitchell Gobert teams. That those teams on a day-to-day regular season basis were always just going to be pretty great. But his rigidity and his fondness for bullshit players really hurt the Jazz when it came to crunch time situations. And I think Will Hardy's got a lot more adaptability to him, and focusing on that opponent to opponent gameplay management, which is why he's kind of hard on his players. If they, let me be more specific as like a granular example is like game to game, you're asking your perimeter defenders like, hey, all I'm asking you guys is that this opponent ball handler, they love going right. They love reject, or here's how often they reject screens, or here's how often they go left, here's how often they take the screen, and here's how often after they take the screen, how much they do pull-up jumpers versus pass the ball. Like, it's not a list of 50 things. It's a list of like 4 things that he's expecting the players to pick up. And if they fail at doing those things, that's where he gets the most frustrated. I think that's a very reasonable list of asks night to night. Of course, always with the caveat, I'm not an NBA player. I don't know. It could be very hard. So I am thankful that we have not just like a 26th best coach, but I think it's pretty clear that based on his ability to manage a losing team and have them encouraged and developing and coming to work and growing and getting better at basketball and his adaptability from game to game, it just shows that like this is at least a top 15 coach. And put him in a few playoff situations in a year or two, and maybe we'll talk top 8, top 7. Then he's got to win some things, and we'll see what happens from there. And because players are developing under him, let me point out a couple of things here, right? So Lauri Markkanen, and that'll be the next topic we talk about, is actually being thankful for Lauri and how much he wants to be here. A lot of credit's got to go to Will Hardy. Again, this team is not winning for 4 years in a row. And except for maybe the first season, you're going into every season assuming we're going to be bad this year. And for your star player to still want to come to work and want to stay in Utah. A lot of it is Lauri Markkanen's personal preferences and also giving him a 9-figure contract that will certainly help. A lot of it's got to go to Will Hardy's having a special relationship. You got to give Hardy a lot of credit there. Guys like Keontae George, most of the credit's got to go to Keontae himself for being such a great guy this year. Part of it's got to go to Will Hardy for being a coach that he wants to come back to a losing season for and say, like, we're going to do some things. On the flip side, if a player isn't developing under Will Hardy, I start to tilt my head. If you're not figuring out things, it's a you thing, not a Will Hardy thing. And so that's kind of why that's what I'm thankful that we have a coach that I'm not worried about development curves. Because I know the players all buy into what he's selling and that he's done enough on a development standpoint with certain players that if other players aren't developing, I'm not sure it's a Will Hardy problem. It could be that, like Taylor Hendricks and Cody Williams, right? Like they're not developing as fast as we think or would hope. Maybe it is that the Hardy and his staff have not reached these guys in a way that you'd hope. Who knows? But you can be pretty confident that Hardy is not going to be a negative in those situations. Maybe he's not a value add depending on the player type or personality. Pretty sure he's not a negative though. Speaking of which, Lauri Markkanen. I'm so thankful for Lauri, guys. Last year was really, really hard with the intentional sitting of our good players because you just didn't get to see Lauri Markkanen a lot. And unlike some of the other dregs of the NBA, we are seeing it with Brooklyn and such. And the reason that Utah is kind of flirting above those dregs level is we have a tentpole. I don't think you can build a credible NBA championship level team tent, if you will, with just one tentpole. You need a couple tentpoles for a big old circus. And we have one of them. Like, we have one. We have a championship level player. And he's returned completely back to apex form from 3 years ago. So last year, total lost year for Lauri. 2 years ago, pretty good year, but not great. And so after 2 seasons of not apex Lauri, you start to wonder, was that season 3 years ago a fluke? I mean, that season 3 years ago proved that he's a good player. Is this a fluke? This year shows no, he's still great and he's getting better. And just absolutely very, very big fan of everything he's doing. His effective field goal percentage is back to where it is. His 3-point percentage is still a little bit lower, but it's still pretty high. He's back to shooting 50% from corner threes. And then on off stats, the team is 15 points better when he's on the floor. That's better than it was 3 years ago. Both better offensively and defensively. His usage is the highest in his career. And I mentioned in a couple other shows, he's passing. He's not exactly Nikola Jokic out there. But he's passing a lot. A lot more than he ever has. And I think we're seeing an evolution to who he is. And I'm thankful for him. He's never played more than 66 games in a season. I'm sorry, he played 68 his rookie season. He's never started more than 66. He started 65 in his rookie season. And for tanking reasons, he's not going to play that much this year. We'll get to February, March, and he'll sit down. God forbid he actually has a real injury, but we'll get to February, March, and shut him down a little bit. So he probably won't get there. I hope that he shows that he can be a night-to-night healthy person because he's had back issues and that sort of thing. The number one thing I wanted to walk away, though, today about why we're thankful about Lauri Markkanen, that is, I just don't think, I don't see it get talked about enough, is Lauri Markkanen is a top 30 player in the NBA, top 35. A great player. Championship 10 pole, I've already said it. He wants to be in Salt Lake City. Now, you heard me at the top of the show. I don't live in Utah. I've been to Utah plenty of times in my life. But you don't have to live in Utah to understand that it is typically not the most desirable location for a lot of NBA players. I think its reputation has massively exploded in that respect over the past several years. I think over the past 20 years, a lot of very good NBA players have realized that some of these small markets, they're places to focus on basketball. And what is your life while you're there during the basketball season, and you have all off season to do whatever the hell you want because you make ungodly amounts of money to go to your hometown, to live abroad for, Lowry Marketing goes to Finland, right? So it's, small markets are not as poisonous as they used to be. And I think Utah has a natural beauty advantage by far over places like Oklahoma City or Milwaukee or something. So its reputation has exploded in a good way over the past few years, but it's still not like, to have a player who affirmatively wants to be there despite 4 straight losing seasons from a guy who's an all NBA fringe kind of talent who's never made the playoffs. He could have asked for a trade at any time. A lot of players would have. Yeah, a lot of players would have asked for a trade by this point. And he wants to be here. I am so thankful for that because we could be a Brooklyn and an Indiana and a Washington right now where they have no star. Indiana's got Tyrese Halliburton. I think they have a very similar situation with Tyrese. He wants to be in Indiana, and there's a good relationship there, although that ownership group will never, ever, ever pay the tax, so we'll see. So Indiana's not a fair team to lump in there because I think Halliburton really does fit in well there, and they have Rick Carlisle, who's a great coach for players buying into what a small market team is trying to do. I think they're a great organization. And they have, he is an all-NBA talent. But it's like you look at Washington and Brooklyn, when and where are they going to get their star? We got one. And he wants to be in Utah. I'm so thankful for that, guys. And even if we end up trading him for the 900 first-round picks or whatever, I will be thankful for this Lowry Marketing experience. Part of the reason I changed the lighting on the video setup is because I couldn't change my desk and everything where the glare from the one light I have in my office was shining off of my finisher comic book frame here, right? During 3 seasons ago when the team distributes the paraphernalia to media to get players to get voted for things. For his most improved player in all NBA selections, they sent around those fake comic books for Walker Kessler for Rookie of the Year and All Rookie, and Lowry Marketing for All NBA and Most Improved Player. And I was always so upset as I'm looking at the video, looking at myself here, that it was glaring off of Lowry Marketing, the finisher. He's one of my favorite players that we've ever had. He got a slam cover with Jordan Clarkson. That's just cool, man. I love that. So, hopefully he sticks around for a while because he's been just a cool guy that I really like having around. Big disc golf fan, too. What else am I thankful for? I'm going to talk about 2 more players, Keontae George and Ace Bailey. Let's talk about Ace Bailey first because I have a specific thought about him that if you're not watching the Jazz nightly compared to the rest of the NBA, you're going to kind of miss this, in my opinion. I watch every other team. I'm an NBA sicko. Now that I have 3 very young kids, I've had to drop off other hobbies, other TV shows that I'm interested in, and whatever. What remains is my obsessive need to watch as much NBA basketball as possible. I love watching the NBA, and it'll happen the day after where, hey, I've missed a certain game and I'm just going to turn it on at, like, as background noise while I work, right? And just making sure that, like, I'm keeping tabs on just what is happening in the NBA. And if I'm not catching it, then I'm trying to listen to as many diverse NBA wide podcasts as possible so that I know what's happening in Charlotte and Washington and teams that a lot of people aren't watching, but I just know what's happening there. Like, what's happening in New Orleans, right? Yeah, New Orleans is losing a lot of basketball games, but what is happening there? What have people noticed? And at first, just like anybody else, I was watching the very flashy lines put up by VJ Edgecombe and Con Knipple. And Dylan Harper had a great start to the season, and Cooper Flagg's talent is very obvious, and he's had some odd counting number performances, Cooper Flagg, but he looks amazing. Like, he looks absolutely like if you're redrafting today, Cooper Flagg is draft number 1 overall. I've seen it in multiple places right now that if he did not reclassify to 2025 and he was in the 2026 draft, that he would get drafted 3rd or 4th, and I think that is preposterously wrong. Cooper Flagg would absolutely be the number 1 pick in next year's draft, and it wouldn't be close. Perhaps an argument for another time, but he's still, if you were redrafting last year, he's going to go number 1 again. So you're watching these flashy 20, 25, 30-point games out of Knipple and Edgecombe, and you're seeing Ace Bailey play 14 minutes, and you're like, man, this doesn't look good. We missed. It's not like we had the chance to draft Knipple or Edgecombe, but like you felt like, oh man, there was a talent break, there was a tier break, and we missed. And so Knipple's still doing the 25-plus point games. Edgecombe's been a little banged up. His efficiency's gone down a little bit. Dylan Harper's been out with an injury. I don't know how exactly I want to phrase this about Ace Bailey. But unlike when I'm watching Knipple or Edgecombe, there is so much more diverse, raw talent that Ace Bailey has and has already started to show. I'm talking about passing and defense and preternatural ability on the court that screams superstar quality. I think Edgecombe and Knipple are perhaps on their way to multiple All-Star games. Edgecombe in particular. We have seen amazing rookie seasons, though, that have been exhibited by, hey, this player's got it right away, but where is the S top level talent there? Like Tyreek Evans, right? Averaging 25 and 5 his rookie year. He looked like a future 6-time All-NBA guy. And then he just kind of, that was perhaps his best ever season in the NBA. And we don't know what these guys are going to become, but I see so much more stuff oozing out of Ace Bailey than those other two guys. I think Dylan Harper's incredible, by the way. I'm excited that he's going to be back soon. I think he's very underrated right now. I think he's got a lot of stuff, too. There was a pass that Andy Larson highlighted in his triple team that I noticed right away in the Warriors game, where Ace Bailey gets the ball from a corner three from a very awesome pass from Keontae George, by the way. And I can't remember if it was a pump fake or what, but he basically immediately drew a closeout and just took one real hard dribble towards the basket. Okay? The center shows to him. And so he can do a contested baseline floater. And he didn't stop the ball and then pass. He just took a hard dribble in and gave this smooth, slick, 190-mile-an-hour rocket right over to Jusuf Nurkic. And a lot of centers, I think, would have dribbled in and dunked it or done a good layup or drawn a foul. And Jusuf Nurkic is more of a finesse player around the rim, and he misses a lot. He did make his little, 7-foot floater. But it was that little pass that was oozy, that was it had stuff to it. And defensively, he's so long. And he's fouling out in 8 minutes in one game and actually is doing great contests in another game. He's going to figure out like a very average or above average level defensively. He poked the ball out of Luka Doncic. He used his super amazing Dr. Octopus arms, and he completely stunned Luka Doncic in one of our previous Lakers games and poked the ball out from behind after getting beat. Like that was really cool. So I'm thankful that there is a star building here. I promise you, you're going to look at the end. We're going to get to the end of the season. We're going to look at his points per game, rebounds per game, and assists per game, and his field goal percentage and his three-point percentage, and wonder what's happening here. I'm telling you, I'm thankful for the ooze. There's oozing talent. It's tantalizing what he could be. And going back to Will Hardy, I think they're taking it super slow with him. Super duper slow. And for a good reason. I think there's a reason to take it slow with him. Eventually you're going to shut down the Lowry Markkanens for this team, and he's going to get a quadrillion minutes and a quadrillion shots and be encouraged to make a bunch of mistakes. But right now, his charge is to play correct NBA basketball within a very specified box. And he's just saying, like, yes, sir, let's go. That's what I'll do. And in those moments, though, he's not breaking outside of the coaching box that he's asked to kind of operate in. It's just within that box, he's doing things that, it makes you kind of wow a little bit. And so we'll see how that box expands over the year. Keontae George, I've already gone long, but so I just want to be quick about Keontae to say, and as we've said it all year, it's just I'm thankful to be wrong about people's wants, desires, motivations. Like that sentence didn't make any sense at all. I didn't think Keontae was about the right stuff. And we've only had 17 games or so. So the book isn't like written on Keontae now. But this whole story you can read in the offseason about, he's taking a leadership role and whatever, that sounds so fluffy and not worth paying attention to. And then you see it on the court. Everything about Keontae just says faster operation, innate knowledge of where things are going to be, innate knowledge of how much effort is needed on something. And if he doesn't give the requisite effort, he's frustrated about it. I didn't think those types of mentation switches can happen overnight. I think that's something that needs you to take 6 to 8 years to kind of change your approach. I don't know what the hell happened with him. But all of his statistics, advanced stats, counting stats, everything about him screams starter. He is a starter, a positive starter. He is a positive starter in the NBA. It blows my mind. The two things that are negative right now is like the 3-point percentage is still very bad. However, it's merely like lowercase b bad percentage-wise right now after a nightmare start to the season. Anyone's watched the Jazz over the past 2 weeks, that dude's hitting buckets. The mid-range is terrific. The 3-point range has been terrific over the past 2 weeks. He is good. Okay? Second thing is defense. However, he's better there. He's getting a few more steals here and there. He understands that if he is... Because Utah is going to try to have him guard a non-threat on offense as much as possible. And then you get other nights where he's just guarding LeBron James. The past 2 years when Keontae was given a responsibility on defense where he didn't need to try too hard, where he was guarding a non-shooter or a non-threat or whatever, he completely checked out. Used it as a break. Completely checked out. I don't know how else to say it. And this year, he's using those opportunities to say, okay, now that I have a license to not care about the guy that I'm guarding, that doesn't mean I can just chill out. That means I can go be a chaos agent. And he's getting a few more steals that way. And I think it's really cool when he starts to understand a little bit more of the, to go back to like the Will Hardy game plan to game plan type of thing. He is now operating that. He's does bad things from time to time. I don't think those bad things are always effort-based anymore. Last year, he might have been the worst defender in the NBA, if not like a bottom 10 defender in the NBA, because the effort was consistently like, I don't care. He's not caring. And that's just not true this year, so I'm very thankful for that. There's a lot more small things to be thankful for, but those are going to be my main things. Those are my top 5. We got a management team that's trying, that's working hard, they care. They're going to find value around the edges for a small market team. They are a management team that gets phone calls, and they are making phone calls. They are not complacent. I think that is very, very cool. And an ownership group that, not the richest in the NBA, but I think if it comes down to it, they would pay the tax. Also, I kind of think he's a little bit of a dork, but I think he's... Sometimes it's nice to have like kind of a unique style of an owner, and backwards hat hoodie Ryan Smith sitting courtside is not the worst type of owner you can have. I just will never be convinced that a billionaire can convince the masses that he's a man of the people, which is, I think, part of his shtick that he's trying to portray. But he's also not a bad guy. It seems like he's just a fan like the rest of us a lot of the time, and sometimes it's nice to see that. Will Hardy, I think, is a top half coach at least. Really appreciate what he's done. Love to have Lauri Markkanen in the fold. I love that Lauri loves Utah. Ace Bailey's got the ooze. He's going to be a star. And Keontae George, man, just I'm thankful to be wrong about him. And we now have a good starter that... now extension talks get a little funny this summer about Keontae, maybe. So I mentioned Thanksgiving. Mentioned my top 5 things I'm thankful for. I'm going to give you some top 5 side dishes. This is inspired by our friend Greg Foster, host of the Unsalvageables Utah Jazz podcast with the inimitable Sarah Todd of the Desert News. He asked me what are my top 5 side dishes for Thanksgiving. So he mentioned, obviously can't include desserts in this. You can't mention the main meat dish. I know there's a lot of opinions on what type of meat to make for Thanksgiving. And this year, I actually make a very, very good turkey. I've worked really hard on perfecting a recipe for that. But because it's always a much smaller group that we're cooking for this year, I'm doing a couple chickens in 2 different ways. So both are Southern style. One is a New Orleans style from Paul Prudhomme. And one is, it's Southern... It's more of like a low country thing from just simple roast chicken from Frank Stitt, who has multiple restaurants in Birmingham, Alabama. So the New Orleans style has a little bit more peppery Cajun seasoning to it, and you quarter the chicken and you make it into like little structures that you bake in and of itself. And then the roast chicken is just a roast chicken, but it's got a very Southern spice and element flair to it. So Paul Prudhomme and Frank Stitt are those. But we're talking about side dishes. So I love tang and vinegary and sweet flavors at Thanksgiving. I really like it when you're balancing out a lot of our savory foods that you have to add so much more like tang and zhuzh and sweetness to your other dishes to really make a complete meal. And so I get bogged down with the casseroles and the plain mashed potatoes and the plain stuffings. And while those will make a feature at the Thanksgiving, because everyone does, like, hey, you have someone who really loves stuffing, you have somebody who really loves mashed potatoes. Like, we're gonna whip those up easily. Like, you're gonna make a very simple garlic buttery mashed potato. Someone's gonna love that. You're gonna make classic stuffing. Someone's gonna love that. So I like having, when you have a big people coming over, I love making the 12, 13 dishes so that everyone really feels like they have something that they like. But especially with the much smaller party we have this year, what are my top 5? Like, what am I doing for me? Right? So for me, this is I think number 1 for me is, and there are a number of different ways that I don't care about, like, the format you do it, but it's some sort of sweet potato dish. That's number 1 for me. And where you're accelerating the sweetness. And I don't care if you go super fat American and just do, like, sugar, maple syrup, marshmallows, or if you find some other way to make the sweet potato dish even more sweet in a different, more perhaps holistic way. But for me, a very sweet potato dish, whether it's sliced and baked or if it's mashed, that's what I'm going for. And my mother-in-law is in charge of sweet potatoes this year, so I don't know what she's doing. That's my number 1 side. And if I was doing for me, I would do butter and brown sugar. Mashed sweet potatoes. That's going to be my number 1 side dish. I think it complements poultry really, really, really well. And I'm going to come back for seconds sometimes with just the sweet potatoes. So that's going to be my number 1. Number 2. When I think about tang, I need a tangy thing on my plate. There's so many Thanksgiving dinner lineups that I see that have zero tang, zero vinegar, zero good different parts of your taste buds are accelerated. And so for me, my number 2 side dish is going to be a succotash. That's a corn and bean dish. You can serve it hot, you can serve it cold. But a perfect succotash has and this is the succotash I'll be making in our house. It's got a good vinegary base to it, where it's a nice tangy corn and bean type of dish. But you really bring it to a next level if right before serving you're chopping up a bunch of great herbs to toss into it. And obviously, like, what type of fresh herbs depends on who you are as a person. And so I know everyone has their favorite, like, dishes and everything. So for me, I think when you have this baseline succotash, if you can add the fresh herbs that you love the most to it, that'll make it amazing. And so for me, it's going to be the cilantro and the dill, right? A lot of people, they're not dill people. They're not cilantro people. Okay, do something else. I don't give a shit. But for me, it's going to be like the great tangy succotash, and right before it goes out, I prefer it hot. It's going to be a hot dish, and right before it goes out, bunch of fresh cilantro, bunch of fresh dill right on it. Complements your heavy food so well. My third favorite dish, make me some Brussels sprouts and make them as oily and fatty and crispy as possible. You can putting some pancetta in there, put some bacon in there, whatever. I want some oily, crappy meat to make a bunch of oil, and then you're frying the Brussels sprouts and then make them crispy and everything. Do a little fresh Parmesan right before it goes out on the table. Perfect dish. Again, adding that, like, different element to the flavor, I think. Fourth, half cheating here a little bit, I think you have to have something with pomegranates. Pomegranates are so annoying to work with. They can make a mess if you don't cut them exactly, like if you don't get them out of the core or whatever exactly right. But Thanksgiving is a great reason to work hard on it. Again, adding the sweetness, whatever. We make the Smitten Kitchen fall blast salad. That's arugula, and you cook some butternut squash ahead of time and cool it, and then put that on it. You put some roasted pepitas on it, and you put some pomegranates on it, and then she has you make a shallot Dijon dressing to go with it. The dressing can be whatever it wants, but like for me, it's hey a little bit of greens on the side with some pomegranates on it. I think you gotta have some pomegranate something with your Thanksgiving. I think it's a great fall fruit. And then the last, so I'm a big stuffing fan, but if I'm ranking my top 5 sides, and we finish Thanksgiving and like for some reason there wasn't stuffing, I would think at the end of the meal, oh, we forgot stuffing. Not like, oh my God, where's the stuffing? So I actually have a lot of respect for, I think it's a staple. You got to have it at every Thanksgiving meal. It's a good 7th man in the rotation. Like you got to have it. You can't win a championship without stuffing at your table. It's not reaching my starting 5 though. Right? And so for me, the starting 5, and this is going to be big cheat, but I think in order to round out your top 5, whether it's alcohol or non-alcohol, you have to have the perfect cocktail or beer or wine that matches who you are as a person that goes with your meal. And I think that's actually, if you are hosting Thanksgiving, you should take great care to make sure everyone who is eating the great food that you've prepared has a drink that they enjoy that complements what they're eating. Picking out that great wine for a few people who love the wine. Picking out that great beer for people who love the beer. And there are so many non-alcoholic ways to approach this too. A perfect beverage is so good for complementing your meal. And so when I think about side dishes or whatever, like, no, it's very, very important to me that for Thanksgiving, I have my Belgian ales, my double, my triples. They're so caramely and perfect, and just like the flavor of Belgian ales go perfect with Thanksgiving food. I think a bunch of different red wines go. I think peppery red wines are particularly great for Thanksgiving, but everyone likes what they like for drinking. But I think they're like, if you're just having some tap water with Thanksgiving, I think you're ruining your meal. I think you got to do something way better. And whether that's making some sort of mulled wine or something like that, or figuring out some sort of soda concoction or something. Like, find a beverage that goes well to help you wash down all that good stuff you're eating. And so for me, it's going to be the Belgian ales. That's what I'm going to be drinking all the time. So there. I've cheated a little bit with that 5th one. If you're forcing me to pick a food, it's going to be like some sort of regular roasted potato. So I don't think everything, as far as like a side dish, has to follow like sweet tanginess or whatever. I just think they're very, very important. Those are going to be the star side dishes. But if I need to have a 5th starter that isn't a beverage, mashed potatoes are good. I think roasting a variety of different kind of color potatoes or whatever with a bunch of rosemary and salt, goes great. Goes great. If I'm cheating again, it'll be some sort of, I'll talk to you about it, where our gravy is a ginger snap gravy, also from Paul Prudhomme in New Orleans, so adding some southern flair there. But I can't call gravy a side dish, but I guess gravy is more of a side dish than beer is. So there's my time. You can argue with me about side dishes in the comments. Like I said, my number 1 is going to be some sort of very sweet potato dish somehow. Give me something with pomegranates. Give me them oily Brussels sprouts. Oily, crunchy Brussels sprouts, the tangy succotash, and then beer, regular potatoes, or gravy. Pick one of those as whatever I can get away with. And then we'll have the cranberry sauce. We'll have the stuffing on the side. We'll all make sense. Okay. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I'm thankful for you. I forgot to mention that. We're a small little show. I love talking with you guys about the Jazz, about the NBA, and for today only about Thanksgiving side dishes. I think you're all terrific. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you guys have a great NBA Cup weekend, and I will catch you next week. We'll have some more basketball to talk about. All right, y'all. Good night.